All right, everybody, it's me, Gregory Mannarino. It is still Wednesday, October 12th, 2022. Post-market wrap-up, and I can promise you it's going to be a doozy. We're going to cover the markets like I usually do. Economic news, which just doesn't stop, and it won't stop by design, getting progressively worse here. Inflation surging out of control. We just found this out this morning here. We heard from the Federal Reserve, their minutes from their last meeting. And that, I don't know how many of you got a chance to look it over, but clearly the Federal Reserve, or these Federal Reserve creatures, they're really surprised. They're shocked at the pace of surging inflation. They didn't expect this. They didn't expect inflation to be skyrocketing as fast as it is. And I'm going to tell you right now, that's a big lie. They all knew it. You and I knew it. If we knew it, you don't think that they knew it? Oh no, but Janet Yellen again came out explaining the financial system. Oh, it's functioning. It's doing fantastic. Of course. Okay, look, Janet Yellen, former Fed chairman, chairwoman, chair thing, whatever. I don't even know what it is. You define it for me, okay? Because I have no clue. The lie that is being pushed on the people of the world, I have been raging about it for weeks. And the lie is very simple. Federal Reserve raising rates aggressively. They've been doing this for months. Well, it isn't working. It's completely ineffective, and you and I knew it would be from day one. From day one. But the lie keeps getting pushed on people, and the lie keeps getting bigger. What are we witnessing? Well, it's a phenomenon that, we've seen repeated multiple times in history. When a lie is told often enough and big enough, it becomes real. People start to believe it's true, and I think that's really what's going on here. The lie, very, very simply, you know what I'm going to tell you, is central banks here raising rates, raising the overnight rate. It's going to control inflation. Well, it hasn't worked, and it's not even meant to work. Let me ask you this. How does a central bank control inflation? If they really were serious about controlling inflation, what tools do they have to do it? Believe it or not, the Federal Reserve has a tool here, and no one's talking about it. It's not getting the slightest mention anywhere from a Fed president, from the Fed chairman, from a politician, from not one single financial channel here. You know, there are experts over there. No one's talking about it, but we're going to talk about it right here. We understand, you and I, because again, I've been screaming from rooftops about this for a while. The issue here with rising inflation is because we are in a currency free fall. Currencies are losing their purchasing power. At the same time, you have central banks continuing to inflate, using puppet governments as a tool to do that. And what am I talking about? Well, let's fund this project. Let's fund this act, this war, this warp speed vaccine. And then there's a new crisis coming up that they're going to have to fund too. Did you hear about that one? You know, I'll touch on that real quick. The long COVID issues here. People who have been affected by COVID, and now they're experiencing these long-term effects. It's going to require billions of dollars in spending. Oh yeah, it's another avenue, people, to continue to inflate. Now, going back to the tool that central banks actually have to control inflation, let me let you in on a big secret here, okay? If really serious about fighting inflation, they're trying to do, which has been completely ineffective for many, many months, they could do this overnight. Oh yeah, yes they could, and I'm going to tell you. Central banks have the power to tell the banks themselves to increase their reserve requirements. In other words, shrink the money supply. That's the issue here. Okay, if the Federal Reserve really wanted to, they could stop inflation, boom, in its tracks if they just required the banks to hold more cash in reserve. Duh! Okay, you will never hear this from the Fed chairman, a Fed president, from President Imbecile, Mummy Man, Frankenstein. You know what I'm talking about here. You'll never hear this from a propaganda ministry because either they don't know it or, again, they're being told to push the lie. The lie is by raising rates, they're going to slow down inflation. No, by raising rates in an economy that's already in free fall, they're going to exacerbate the free fall of the global economy. Why do you think, for a nanosecond, okay, put this together, central banks acting in concert, doing the same freaking things, raising rates, and what's happening? Inflation continues to move higher. Again, if they really wanted to, if central banks were really serious about stopping inflation, all they got to do is contract the money supply. And they do this by raising the reserves that banks need to hold. You have no idea how this gets to me, people. You have no idea, really. Maybe I should run for office. You think anyone would elect me? I don't know. Maybe I should be the next Fed chair. I would run it to the ground. This organization's got to go. Along with puppet governments, along with every single one of these propaganda ministry financial channels, Fox Business, CNBC, Bloomberg. Do you ever think they're going to have a guy like me out here? Imagine if I were to get on, I don't know, pick one of these major networks and would explain to people the lie. Well, if the central banks really wanted to control inflation, they would just contract the money supply. But no, you see, a guy like me, I will never, ever be allowed on one of those channels. Nor would I even want to be, okay? They can do their thing. I'm going to do mine. We don't need those freaks over here, okay? Forget about it. It's too sick in my view. Anyway, does that make sense to you? Did a light bulb just go off in your head? Did you just get an epiphany moment, like a ding, ding, ding? Because I've been screaming about this, people, since this started, how it would not work. Central banks raising rates, all it's going to do, and all it's designed to do, is crush the economy and the people with it. That's all it's designed to do by the Fed raising rates. If the Fed really wanted to stop this, people, they just got to contract the money supply. And they could do this overnight. We could literally see inflation drop overnight if the Federal Reserve just increased reserve requirements of the banks, forced them to hold more cash. But no, you see, that wouldn't allow central banks to fulfill their end game. That is to continue to inflate, to continue to destroy the global economy so they can, become the lenders, buyers of last resort, own the freaking world, and solidify their position as, rulers of the freaking world here. That's really what we're seeing here. Do you understand? Again, imagine for a nanosecond, anybody were to talk about what I just said on a mainstream financial channel or anywhere else. Imagine if we had a president who had the guts to come out and explain that to the people of the world, to the people of the United States. One world leader, that's all we need, is one to come out and expose this lie. You see, me, I'm stuck here in my office, and I'm trying as hard as I can to expose what's going on, to allow people to understand what's happening across the entire spectrum of this twisted, upside down, disgusting, vomitous financial system that is running people into the ground by design, destroying nations, destroying people. How many times have I said that central banks are the enemy, the public enemy number one, and we need a freaking revolution in this country, otherwise we're all just dead. It's just they want us all dead. And they're working towards that goal, people. You know what I'm talking about. I've covered it a million freaking times. Anyway, I want to hear from you on that. Does this make sense to you that if central banks really wanted to control inflation or stop it and extract, they would contract the money supply, and they can do this overnight by what I just said because they have that power. Central banks can force banks to hold larger reserves, and that would contract the money supply. And that would directly affect inflation by contracting the money supply. But no, their goal is to inflate, and they're going to use that mechanism via puppet governments and brain-dead presidents and everyone else. And this crisis and another crisis and this crisis and now the long COVID crisis and every other freaking crisis, wars, expanding wars, and you name it, to continue to inflate. while people sit back and have no clue as to what's happening to them. But you do by following this blog. Now, I want to cover a few things. Not only this morning did we find out that inflation is surging higher with no end in sight. No surprise to you because I've been explaining that to you since forever now. Fed minutes, they're shocked. Fed presidents had no idea that inflation was going to continue rising at the pace that it is. Of course they did, because all of them understand what I told you about contracting the money supply versus raising rates. Seriously, honestly, I hope that maybe, and I know that they do, one of these mainstream media outlets is listening to this. And they get a guest out there who'll tell the truth. Now they won't allow him or her on. They won't allow it. There's no way they would allow someone like me on any mainstream media outlets. It's never going to happen. And like I said, nor would I want it. So we got this new crisis. Now I want to. That's the long COVID that's going to have to be funded to the tune of billions of dollars. Now this is something that came out today. Very interesting. It's very sad. 32% of American households, that's like 1/3 of American households, are struggling right now to pay bills because inflation is surging out of control by design, and no one's going to stop it. Okay. I think that is absolutely freaking pathetic. But 1 in 3 American households are now unable to pay bills. And you think that's by accident? No. Going back to what I was saying, the Fed has a mandate here of price stability. I think we all know that. Okay. Being that they have failed miserably in their mandate to maintain price stability, and again, look, this is obviously on purpose here, overshooting their 2% inflation target by exponents, and now trying to convince people that by raising rates they're going to bring inflation down, which is completely ineffective, as we can see with your own eyeballs. But they're going to continue raising rates. That's what the Fed minutes said as well. Not only was it that these Fed things, they're not even human beings, okay, they're not, are shocked at the pace of inflation skyrocketing, but they're going to continue to raise rates. But they're not going to contract the money supply because, you see, that would put a dent in their plan of continuing to inflate. And that's why you're never going to hear people. I hope you share this video. I hope you talk about the things I speak about here, because you're not going to hear this stuff anywhere else. I can guarantee this. So since the Fed has failed miserably in their ability to maintain price stability, when are we going to get rid of this organization? Never, as you all know, because they're the real government. Anyway, people, look, what else can I tell you? Let's just talk about the market. Okay, so 10-year yield at 3.9, MMRI higher, the dollar slight gain today. Okay, whatever. The instability in the debt market remains. It doesn't look like it's going away anytime soon. We'll see how that plays out moving forward, and that's the biggest threat to not only the market but also to human life. You know that. Debt bubble. A resource problem on a biblical scale is going to hit, and people will not be able to. Forget about 1 in 3 households that can't pay bills. Cash transactions will stop. All transactions will stop at the moment the debt bubble bursts here. No cash available at the banks, ATMs, debit cards don't work, credit cards don't work, pandemonium in the streets. That's where we're going, and that's why central banks continue to inflate instead of contracting the money supply and actually doing something about inflation. Okay, I think that's pretty clear. If you follow this blog, you know exactly what I'm talking about. If you're new here, welcome aboard. Okay. Anyway, what was I even leading with this? I was talking about the markets. Okay, so stocks under some pressure. Bitcoin, crypto's relatively flat. Gold and silver under some pressure. Crude under pressure. All this is well and good. Okay, it's all well and good to watch and frolic around and have fun talking about. But it's the bigger issues. It's the bigger issues here. It's the debt bubble. It's what central banks are not doing because they have no intention. Central banks, I have told you this since the inception when they started talking about how they were going to control inflation. They do not want to stop it. Central banks are hell-bent on continuing to inflate. This is why they're doing what they're doing. Raising rates and in a free-fall economy, crushing the people along with it. All the things I explained would happen from years ago are happening now. And we could fix it, people. I'm counting on all of you to get out here and talk about these things like the concept I just brought up. Oh, wow. Really contract the money supply. Oh, really, that would work. It would work. But force the banks to hold larger reserves. But no, that can't happen because you see that, like I said, that would put a dent in the central bank's ability to inflate. And nothing is going to get in that way. Now watch. Not only are we going to have this long COVID crisis, this nuclear crisis, expanding wars, this pet project by our Congress people, and this act that's all going to require hundreds of billions, if not trillions of dollars. There's going to be another crisis, and then another crisis, and another crisis to pull more cash into the now. Central banks continue to inflate. You see what I'm talking about? Do you get it? I think you do. All right, look, I'm out of here. Please comment. Please share the video. Get it out there. Because I can promise you, you're never going to hear this from anywhere else. See you in the morning.